Hi guys and welcome to the circus. So today we are gonna take a look at my third place Baromagnes list from DifferentFight. So today we are gonna take a look at my third placed Baromagnes list from DF's first ever OverDress tournament. Nailed it! So if you didn't know, DF hosted an OverDress tournament last Saturday and it was an amazing experience. I've never had that much fun in a tournament in like ever. OverDress is such an amazing format. If you haven't tried it already, I assure you that you will have a ton of fun. Well, I guess it depends on what community you're playing with, but if you have a solid community right now that wants to try OverDress, give it a go. And we all have high hopes that it will get better from here. Going back to the deck profile, so again, I brought Baromagnes because out of all the decks right now, especially with the decks of Dark States, well, there's not much to choose from, but I chose to bring Baromagnes because it is the deck that I was really excited for. It is a deck that is a mixture of Pale Moon and Dark Irregulars. Like, what more can you ask for? It's like the most perfect combination of the two clans right now and the other formats. Well, arguably the best combination because DI provides the soul and Pale Moon provides the multi-attack, which is like bread and butter. It's like the most amazing combination in my opinion. Also, honestly, I didn't expect that Baromagnes becomes one of the meta decks right now in OverDress. The moment that DifferentFight decided to host an OverDress tournament, I immediately thought of Baromagnes. I never had second thoughts on bringing another deck with me. And for 2 weeks, I play tested the deck alone. I didn't have anyone else to play with, sadly. But with the amount of time I put into play testing the deck, having like a one-on-one time with the deck really made me realize how strong it is. You just really need to find the right spot or the right recipe for it in order to make it work. Well, I'm not saying that my list is the best, but it is certainly one of the strongest, at least with a given card pool that we have for Dark States. So enough with the intro, let's get on with the list. So first, let's talk about the ride deck. My ride deck is pretty standard. We have Uncanny Burning into Sonicer, into Spartan, into Baromagnes. So pretty standard. It's the ride line from the booster and you can't go wrong with it. However, I would like to emphasize what this ride line can bring to Baromagnes or to the deck as a whole. This ride line alone can provide you exactly 6 soul. That number is actually really important. Having 6 soul instantly means that you will only need 4 more soul in order to get your 10 soul requirement for your Baromagnes skill. That 4 soul can be easily achieved by only 2 cards that can provide 2 soul charge. If you understood what that means, your deck building will actually change. Which brings me to the topic of the philosophy of this deck, or at least the game plan of this build. The game plan of this build is to reach 10 soul on your first grade 3 turn, and reach 15 soul ASAP or at least on your second grade 3 turn when you do your persona ride or not, depending on your hand. However, the most important thing is to reach 10 soul on your grade 3 turn. And to do that, you will need a combination of 2 cards which includes at least Curtis, Brother Soul, or Electro Spartan. These cards right here are the easiest way to achieve your goal. They provide easy soul just by placing them, especially with these 2 because they don't cost anything. If you opened up with 2 cards that can soul charge 2 on your first grade 3 turn, your soul will become instantly 10 cards, meaning your Vanguard from then on will swing for 23k with a crit and you will plus every single turn. That alone is already pressure and a lot of plus to your hand. Realizing that, I immediately maximized every single copy of these. Also, you can do the same with Selfish Engraver. She is actually technically a soul charge 2 if she hits and if you're at 10 soul. Also, Selfish Engraver is one of the easiest way to provide 1 soul. So if you add things up, your ride line gives you 6 soul. If you have 2 cards that can soul charge 2, it's already 10 soul and you need 5 more cards. Those 5 cards can be achieved by 2 cards again that can soul charge 2 and 1 card that can soul charge 1. You will only need to reach 15 soul and no more than that. Well, if you will be forced to reach more than 15, it's still fine, but you need to be careful because your deck will now deplete sooner. The easiest way to reach 1 soul charge is by Engraver or the Persona Ride. or if you run the Steam Gunner that Soul Charges 1 on place, and then Soul Blast 3 for a draw. I don't run that card because I think that is not necessary in this deck, and it's really not that fitted to the playstyle that I'm playing. So this is the overall game plan of this list, and the overall philosophy of how it's played, or at least how I play it. Let's move on to the main deck list, and let's see the ratios of each card. So on the grade 3 lineup, I run the remaining copies of Baromagnes. So I do prioritize the Persona Ride because it just adds more value. But I do see some lists that doesn't prioritize the Persona Ride. Instead, they max out this card, which is the Crawl You Insects. It's named Crawl You Insects, but it's not pronounced that way. It's supposed to be Crawl You Insects. I'm never doing that again. So this card is actually a pretty good card. And if you actually compare this to the Persona Ride, it almost has the same value. So taking a look at the Persona Ride versus this card, the Persona Ride gives you a draw, a soul, and a 10k boost to the front row continuously. While this card also provides you soul, a draw, and power to a unit. The only difference is that this card only gives power to one unit, and it costs a CB. Still, I really like the concept of Persona Ride because it is a continuous 10k buff to the front row. Personally, I prefer the Persona Ride, but this card is also fine. You can actually go either way around in my opinion. I do still run the one-off copy of this because this is the perfect card to combo off with Selfish Engraver. Last grade 3, or arguably the best grade 3 of the deck, well, at least besides from Baromagnes of course, is Curtis. So I maximize him at 4. Again, he is the easiest way to provide 2 soul. I maximized every single card here that provides 2 soul because they are the main source of your soul. He also has another skill where you counterblast 2 and then give 5k to the entire front row. It's not continuous, sadly, but it still works on some occasion. Again, with the amount of counter charge you have with this deck, it's really no big deal. I occasionally use his skill when I have spare CB on my final turn. If not, I don't mind not using it. I just need him to provide soul. Because when you reach 15 soul with this deck, you unlock a lot of potential with this deck. You now have consistent powerful attacks every turn on top of the crit pressure and the plus it gives. You just need 1 CB and it's all active. Plus, you remove your opponent's entire board to the soul. Well, it may sound like a plus to some decks like Bruce or maybe Zorga, but overall, minusing the entire board is really painful for the opponent. That actually puts a lot of units to the board. Moving on to the grade 2s, we have the remaining copies of Electro Spartan. So Electro Spartan is yet again another unit that provides 2 soul to your soul count, but he does cost a CB, which is again not that big of a deal since we have a lot of counter charge with this deck. Sometimes I use him on my grade 2 turn because he is a unit that stays on the board. You can do a little bit of aggro play on the early game, and he is one of the keys to enable your blitz order to be live on your grade 2 turn, which is sometimes quite useful, especially when you're going second. Last grade 2, arguably the best girl of the deck, which is Selfish Engraver. So Selfish Engraver is a very, very amazing card. She is one of the easiest soul charge, easiest counter charge in the entire Dark States. I still can't believe this card is a common. She deserves to be a double rare at least, in my opinion, because she is really, really valuable. She's an on-hit soul charge 1 by hitting onto anything, which also provides a bit of pressure. Also, the best skill that she has is that when you have 10 soul, after the battle she attacks, you can put her in the soul and you counter charge 1. She is the only source of your counter charge, but you will be able to proc her a lot of times during the moment that you have 15 soul. Sometimes what I like to do is check the opponent's hand cards, and if they have enough shield to guard my next attacks after my Baromagnes' skill, I just call out Selfish Engraver in order to counter charge. Overall, really just an amazing card. You can't go wrong by running too much of her. Those were all the grade 2s, because we don't have that much grade 2s right now in our card pool. I didn't run Violetta. Actually, I would if I could. I just forgot to print her. Let us move on to the orders. We are running 4 copies of Brother's Soul. This is by far the best source of soul you can have. It's just a really amazing card to have. I saw some lists before that didn't run Brother's Soul at all. The moment I saw it, I was questioning everything. Like, why won't you run this? This is the easiest way to provide soul, so why won't you run it? We know that we can only play an order once per turn. However, this card is a grade 1 order, meaning on your first turn, you can cast it or play it, and then if you have more copies, you can play next turn. It's really not that bad of a card. This is actually the best card in the deck. It's just an effortless soul charge like Curtis. It turbos your entire engine, so why won't you run it? I really don't see myself cutting this to 2. At least you can work with 3, but I maximized it because again of the philosophy that I went with it, which is to reach 10 soul on your first grade 3 turn and reach 15 soul ASAP. This card enables me to do that along with the other cards that can soul charge too. I mentioned earlier that you can use this on your first turns before you reach your grade 3 because of how many copies you run. The reason why I mentioned that because I do run 3 copies of this Blitz order. This Blitz order is live when you have 5 soul. On your grade 2 turn, your soul is exactly 3 cards. If you have Brother's Soul or a Spartan, that adds up to 5. Meaning, if you happen to be going second or you won the guard early and you have Blitz orders in your hand, these cards are active the moment you opened up with Brother's Soul. Which is also why I'm not afraid of running more copies of Brother's Soul and more copies of this Blitz order. Next, we run the 4 copies of the PG, which is the new PG that doesn't require you to discard anything when you have less than 2 cards in hand. You can't go wrong with multiple PGs, especially with the format that has a lot of powerful attacks, like for example other Baromagnes, Bruce, Zorga. There are a lot of decks right now in this current format that has a lot of power, so PGs will really help you to survive. Of course, I will run the remaining copies of Sonicer because he is the best boy, the best grade 1 in the deck. It's just a very powerful attacker, your best call from your 15 soul threshold. Alone, he is an 18k attacker or booster, goes to 28 when called from soul via Baromagnes' skill, goes to 38 with the Persona Ride. It's just a really good card. It's just a powerhouse. It's the main unit that you want to call when you want to try to finish the game. Final grade 1, I run the one-off Shimune. So Shimune is really a clutch card. She actually saved me in one of my games. In that game, I couldn't reach 15 soul. So what I did was just call Shimune behind my Vanguard, and then right there, I would force a PG along with another card in hand because of the Battle Door skill. It does cost a CB, but again, with the amount of countercharge with Selfish Engraver, it's really no big deal. I would probably bump her up to 2 if I have the space for it, but right now I don't have anything. Basically, you can treat her as a flex spot. You can run the Steam Gunner if you want to, maybe more defensive unit, or her. You really can't go wrong with running her. For the trigger lineup, I run 7 crits, 4 draws, 4 heals, and the over trigger. So pretty standard trigger lineup. I really don't want to deplete my deck that soon, so I reduced the copy of draws. However, I did ran one more draw because sometimes I do need to fetch my soul charging pieces. The draw triggers are actually the best discard fodder for a ride deck. Sometimes I even intentionally keep one draw trigger from my Mulligan because it becomes the least valuable card in my hand, and that way I am willing to discard it for the ride deck. So that's about it for the list. Next, I want to show how I Mulligan with this deck. So let's now proceed to do a little bit of playtesting. Let's start off by drawing 5 cards, obviously. So 5 cards. So right here, we do have 1 card that can soul charge 2, and I will now put the remaining cards back to the deck. I want to keep this and remove everything else because I do need some soul chargers. That's not it. That's not it. That's 1, and we have nothing. So yeah, let's proceed to shuffling. So let's pretend we're going first. So let's draw. Oh, there we have another soul charge. That's really good. So another note, what you want to see in your hand is almost exactly as this. You want to have 2 cards that can soul charge 2 and a card that you want to put in the soul. The reason is the on-ride skill of Spartan needs you to put a card from your hand to the soul. So you need to have a card that you really want in the soul, or at least something that you can use in the soul. One of them is going to be Selfish Engraver, or if you have other copies of Deep Sonicer, you can use him as well. This time we don't have Sonicer, so we'll just work with what we have. We are now going to discard a crit because we don't need that much of it. ride Sonicer, and now since we go first, we're just gonna soul charge one, and let's take a damage, a heal, doesn't go off. Proceed to our turn again, draw a card, that's a Curtis, so we have 3 cards that can soul charge 2. Now we're gonna discard, I am going to discard another crit. We do lose some shield, but it's fine, we don't do anything here. Now we have 3 soul. So what I like to do is either commit a Spartan or a Brother Soul. What I'm gonna do is just commit a Brother Soul. In case I do draw more copies of this won't be a brick in my hand because I did cast it right now. So I'm gonna use Brother Soul, Soul Charge 2. That's a Sonicer, that's a PG, that's fine. This also will help you if possibly you draw into the Blitz order or drive check into a Blitz order. That way you can use the Blitz order when you are in a tough situation. So let's proceed with attacking. Drive check, a Curtis once again. That's not bad of a drive check. So next, we're just gonna take 1 damage again, a heal. It goes off. And then let's just proceed with 1 damage. Draw a card. Ooh, look at that, a Baromagnes. So we did check a defensive, assuming that they don't have that much units that can get over a defensive yet. So let's just proceed with this. We are now gonna discard a card. So we do want Engraver in our soul. We have 2 cards that can soul charge 2. And we have a Persona Ride. So the least valuable card here, at least on my opinion, is either a Spartan or a Curtis. What I would like to do is discard the Spartan because I don't have that much CB. So I'm gonna discard it and ride Baromagnes. Now you put the Selfish Engraver to the soul, draw a card, look at that, and soul charge 1. So now we have exactly 8 soul because of the 6 cards from the ride chain, and now we have the 2 soul from the brother soul. We now need 1 more card that can soul charge 2, which is Curtis. We are now gonna call Curtis, and now we are at 10. So we are now at 10 soul on your first grade 3 turn. That easy. You now have a free plus every turn and a crit to pressure your opponent. You do only have 1 CB right now, which is gonna be going to the Baromagnes, obviously. You can commit 1 more Curtis or keep everything else. What I would like to do is just keep everything else and just proceed to battle phase. So we are gonna swing first with our Vanguard to CB1. We draw a card because we do have 5 soul. Get plus 10k and a crit to my Vanguard because we are at 10 soul. And now let's proceed to drive check. First check, a PG. Second check, a Blitz order. So this Blitz order is gonna be active now because we do have more than 5 cards in the soul already. Now we have 7 cards in hand. So let's just swing with Curtis and then let's proceed to taking more damage. So assuming that our opponent swings thrice, we don't have that much. I don't want to commit a PG early, so I think I'll just gonna take the last one. We're gonna stand and draw. So now we have the Persona Ride. This Persona Ride is going to be able us to reach 11 soul. We draw a card. Look at that, another Spartan. So we have 2 Curtis, or a Spartan and a Curtis. This 2 cards right here, this lovely gentleman right here, enables us to reach 15 soul. So we're going to call Curtis, soul charge 2 again, another Sonicer right there, which is going to be useful. And we are now gonna need 1 more card. So what I would like to do is call the last Curtis and then soul charge 2. 2 engravers, very nice. So right here, we are now 5, 10, and 15. That easy. You are now at 15 soul and everything is now unlocked. We do have some useless cards in the field right now, but it's still fine. So assuming that our opponent is at like 2 damage or 3, like 2 damage, because if they did commit a PG early from our first grade 3 attack, that means they're only at 2 damage if they took the hit from Curtis earlier. With our current hand, it's not that bad, it's not that good. So since we are at our Persona Ride, everybody gets plus 10. Now, right here, I'm not actually afraid of using Curtis' skill. So I will use Curtis' skill to CB2 and give plus 5k to the entire front row. That way, my Curtis will now hit for 28, asking for 20k shield. And this card right here is not really relevant anymore because they will be put in the soul. Take note that Baromagnes doesn't care about boosters because you will just put them in the soul anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's now proceed with the battle phase. So we're gonna swing for 28, another 28. Now we are gonna swing with our Baromagnes skill CB1. We are gonna put both fields to the soul, and I will call 2. What I will call is Engraver, or either Engraver or another Sonicer if you have a spare Sonicer. But this time I will call 2 Selfish Engravers to countercharge 2. Or if you don't need the countercharge that much, you can just call the other copy of Sonicer from your soul. With the amount of soul charge that you do, you're most likely gonna have like 1 or 2 Sonicers in the soul. In our hand, we have 1 more copy of Sonicer, so if that Sonicer gets sniped, it's still fine. So they both get plus 10 since they are called from Baromagnes' skill. This Sonicer becomes 38, by the way. And we are now gonna swing for 38, 2 crits. Did we draw? I forgot. No, we didn't draw yet. So we're gonna draw right there. Oh, we secured another Persona Ride. So we now have 7 cards in hand. I will now proceed to drive check, a Brother's Soul, and nothing. So blanks. We can possibly force a PG again with this attack. Otherwise, our opponent will need to hard guard it. But we still have 2 more attacks. So we are gonna swing for 30k. So assuming that it didn't hit, we are gonna put it in the soul anyway and countercharge 1. That way we still have some CB left for our Baromagnes next turn. And finally swinging for 38, big number with our Sonicer. So proceeding again to the opponent's turn. For example, we took 1 damage. We commit like 2 PGs, discarding this and this, because we don't need the Brother's Soul anymore. Proceeding with the Blitz order, something like that. And then assuming that we did survive this is the final turn basically, and we still have a lot of cards in our deck. We draw a card into a heal, doesn't really matter. Persona Ride once again to give power to the entire front row once again. And our Sonicer is going to be 28. Right here, we can do a very powerful turn. Let's call the Sonicer right here. Maybe move it to the back. And let's call the other copies that you have in your hand. Right here, we are now going to swing for big numbers. So now we're going to swing for 28. This is hitting for 23, 33, 41. Now swinging again for 33, 2 crits, and a draw on top of that. Now we're going to move everything again to the soul. And then call out the other 2 Sonicers from earlier. And proceeding with the drive checks, draw trigger power here. Becomes now 48. This now becomes 38. Second check, over trigger. Okay, so over trigger it is. Draw a card, give 100 million power over here, and plus 10k in a crit for my Vanguard. Doesn't really matter. At this point, we can say that we won because of the amount of attacks and power that we have. And yeah, that's basically how I play this deck. So that was my 3rd place Baromagnes deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a little bit more in-depth compared to what I usually do on my deck profiles. To be honest, I still haven't explained every single detail. But if you do have some questions, just leave it down in the comments and I will try my best to answer them. If you did try this list yourself or you have a pretty close list to mine, tell me your experience about it because I am really interested. It's just really fun to talk about deck profiles. Thank you so much for watching. Together, let us raise the flag of Dark States and I'll see you guys next time.